It's finally here. Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into this special crossover edition, Iron Bowl edition. Locked on Auburn, Locked on Bama. I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked on Auburn. He is Jimmy Stein of Locked on Bama. We'll give our predictions, who wins this thing, as well as who steps up on both sides of the football. But I mean, there's some big narratives swirling around this, Jimmy, as there will be for any Iron Bowl. This one is kind of interesting. Interim head coach involved, late quarterback change for Auburn. But it does, like, while all these different things and all these moving parts are happening on the Auburn side of this, Jimmy, the pressure seems to all be on Kalen DeBoer here. Is that safe to say?
I think so. I mean, depending on, you could also look at it like, how big of a figure is DJ Durkin in the Auburn search, and would this win help that along? So in that sense, there's pressure, but I think there's immense pressure on Kalen DeBoer in this game. In this sense, Zach, obviously win and you're likely in the playoff. Not certainly, but likely in the playoff. And if you lose, it's not like in 2013, which I know as Auburn fans, one of their favorite years in this game. It's not like the winner of that game was going to go play for the national championship. And if Alabama lost, there was going to be disappointment that Nick Saban failed to win 3 national championships in a row. Yeah. But this wouldn't simply be disappointment with the loss. This is more disastrous. As bad as the kick six looked, it wasn't a disaster for Alabama to lose in 2013, maybe in the manner in which they did. But this would be more disastrous. And I say that in the sense it would be 2 years in a row where Kalen DeBoer did not make a 12-team playoff when Alabama was consistently doing so in a 2-14 playoff.
Correct.
And it would be 2 years in a row where 2 of the 3 losses were to teams that ended with basically 6-6 or 500 type football seasons. It's going to be a miserable offseason for Alabama with a loss. I don't think disaster is hyperbole in terms of how loud and messy it will be in the offseason. Do I suspect Alabama would make a coaching change? No, I do not. But It's still going to be loud if Kalen DeBoer and Alabama end up losing at the end to an Auburn team struggling to make a bowl. But at the same time, and I'm about to ask you this doesn't feel like a 5-6 Auburn football team to Alabama fans because of the changes Auburn recently made at head coach and a quarterback. Yeah. I think the 5-6 by Auburn's name is a little misleading. Now factor in basically every loss has been by 1 score in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. Or, a lot of drama. Georgia was 10 points, I think, but like there was drama at the goal line and literally got a referee fired because of the controversy behind it. Yeah. I mean, and look, I mean, talking about Auburn, it doesn't feel like they're a 5-6 team going into this because of all of the new life that they found since firing Hugh Freeze. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happened to this offense, Jimmy. After you fire the quarterback guru, the offensive-minded head coach, of course, it was Hugh Freeze, and you hear all these things coming out. It's like, oh, my goodness, how did this happen and go on for so long? And I think some of it was a quarterback change, but we saw Ashton Daniels start against Kentucky where they scored 3 points, and the only reason they scored the 3 points is because Elijah Melendez got a pick and almost ran it back. And then Hugh Freeze gets fired, and then all of a sudden, Ashton Daniels is able to get the football to Cam Coleman, to Eric Singleton, and to Malcolm Simmons. So I'm with you because the talent has always been there for this roster, despite being so close against Oklahoma and all these different teams that they face. So that's the right way, I think, if you are on the Alabama side of it, to approach this team, is because on paper, they are better than the 5 wins that they have so far because they can't. Even the Vandy game is fascinating because, like, I still don't fully understand how this defense, that I think is pretty solid, gave up as many points as they did to Diego Pavia. I mean, Diego Pavia is just Auburn's kryptonite, but I mean, he's gotten the better of Alabama too. I mean, he's a good quarterback, and that's just part of it in this game.
That's a difficult. Vanderbilt's a difficult preparation. As a matter of fact, I think you can look to this weekend, unrelated to the Iron Bowl, of course. But I won't be surprised if Vandy, Tennessee is a game in the 40s.
It's
I
wild.
think
Yeah.
Vanderbilt will score a lot of points against Tennessee, and Tennessee is likely to score a lot of points against Vanderbilt, especially in Neyland. Vanderbilt's a difficult preparation, a difficult offense to prepare for.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you that. I think a great question Alabama fans will have about the coaching change. Do you ascribe any of Auburn's, quote, and I'm using this term lightly, failures on defense recently, giving up all the points in Nashville, getting off to sort of a roughish start against Mercer? Do you just ascribe any of it to DJ Durkin now having these additional responsibilities as head coach, taking away from what he was formerly doing as DC, which was incredibly impressive?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on who you talk to, right? Because it's not like he's missing defensive meetings now because he's a head coach. I don't think he's spending, I don't think he's staying up till 2:00 in the morning, help prep the offense. My understanding is that's not what's happening. I mean, is he involved to some extent? Sure. He's the head coach right now. He needs to oversee it. But a lot of the folks I talked to is like, it sounds like it was, I think he just got out coached against Vandy, like in the second half. And he talked about it in the post game. But like the timing's a little too perfect, right, Jimmy? I mean, they had this incredible defense that was on the field like the entirety of all these games.
Yeah.
They were still keeping it within a score late. And then all of a sudden he does become head coach, and it seems like he takes a step away and they look worse. It depends on who you talk to. I will say this, though, with a bye week and then Mercer, I just don't see a world, Jimmy, where DJ Durkin does not have this Auburn defense ready for Alabama. I just have a hard time seeing that not happen on Saturday.
Well, I think as difficult a preparation as Vanderbilt is, Alabama's completely different. Alabama doesn't do anything that I would call complicated on offense. I don't think you have to put in the extra hours because Alabama does crazy stuff. Now, there's some trick plays, but there's nothing that Alabama does like Vanderbilt that's unique to Alabama. And Alabama has struggled on offense. I mean, it's been a struggle at times. They don't run the ball really well, only averaging 109 yards a game on the ground going into Eastern Illinois.
Is that a by choice thing, or can they really just not get it going?
I think it's a 4 or 5 prong factors into why Alabama doesn't run the ball great. I don't think it's one thing. I know a lot of fans, they would like to just point to the running back or point to the offensive line. I think it's all of it. I do think the running back room isn't, let's just say, typical of the Saban era. You don't have a Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram. No one's winning a Heisman that's in that running back room right now. So that's a factor. The offensive line is a factor. Yeah. I think other factors are this. DeBoer, as he's been a head coach at Fresno, Washington, and 1 year at Alabama, the best running team he ever had in terms of the production was Alabama last year. Why? Well, the quarterback was running for 60, 80 yards every week on top of what the backs were doing. That's the best running team he's had statistically. So I think some of it is under DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, it's always going to be a pass-first offense. That's what they're going to do first and foremost. It's going to be what they work on. It's what they are. So that's a factor. Then now take into account an offensive line that struggles a little bit in the run blocking, a running back room that's not, like I said, it's not a fair comparison, but Saban-esque. And a final factor, which is really big to me, is last year Alabama played a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. Together, the two were over 500 pounds, 2 260-pound tight ends. One's a Seattle Seahawk, one's a New England Patriot now. They were replaced by one tight end who's 235 pounds and primarily a pass receiver. Right. I think that has been a huge factor, too, in Alabama's inability to run the ball really well. Now, that said, at times, they have run the ball okay. And I think if Auburn fans are expecting this Alabama team just can't run the ball, they might be a little surprised Saturday. I do think Jam Miller's a little healthier, had a concussion earlier this year. It affected his numbers. Daniel Hill's coming along. They sneakily ran the ball well against Oklahoma. You wouldn't look at the numbers and say that they did, but how about this? They played Oklahoma, the best run defense in this league, for 60 minutes, gave up no negative run plays. So that's a win against Oklahoma. Sure. And when Alabama's trying to walk and crawl before they run, on offense running the ball. I think it's been better lately. I do think one of my things to look for Saturday is Alabama's going to run the ball better than people expect. Now, not 200 yards, not even 180 yards,
Yeah.
but probably beyond their average in the SEC play. They're emphasizing it a little more and they're doing it a little better.
DJ Durkin earlier this week, Jimmy, was asked about, hey, Alabama hasn't found a ton of success running the football. Like, why do you think that is? I don't know if you saw this, but his response was, I would guess that they kind of count some of these quick passes as an extension of their running game.
Yeah.
How much should Auburn fans expect to see of that on Saturday?
I would give Ryan Grubb some high marks in this. He's been creative, and that, boy, fans get excited about that. But there's been a lot of trick plays. The best running back on the team, this sounds crazy, the best running back on the team is Jeremy Bernard. He just doesn't play back there very often. But when Alabama puts Jeremy Bernard at running back, whether they run a trick play,
such a good football player.
If they could run a trick play or just toss him the ball or it's a sweep, they just tend to do better on those snaps than when one of the regular backs is in there. And he's built he's 6'1", 205, which is a normal size. So Ryan Grubb has gotten creative because he's had to in the run game to not put all of it on Ty Simpson throwing the ball down the field. For a lot of the season, Ty's held up well in that regard, but you play 8 SEC games and 8 defenses like you see in this league. It's not going to work every single week. You have to be more balanced.
Yeah. Who steps up for Auburn? Who steps up for Alabama? How much of an impact could that have on Saturday? That's next, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Bama. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Jimmy, as we record this, Alabama 5.5-point favorite on Saturday. Your initial thoughts when you saw that line? I thought it was about right. I expected it to be a little bit wider when I first saw it. I'm not going to lie to you. Your thoughts?
I did expect more like 7.5-ish. I did expect that. But when you look at Auburn's season, I took a deeper dive into Auburn's season when they became the next opponent, and I see all the scores and how, everything's been close. At Alabama, everything's been close. Frankly, the difference in these two teams is in the second half, Auburn's found a way to lose by 1 score. Alabama's in the second half has found a way to win by 1 score. That's what's kind of separated the two teams. So the fact that it's 5.5, less than 1 score, it doesn't surprise me when you do the deeper dive.
Hey, right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Jimmy Stein of Locked on Bama. I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked on Auburn. Jimmy, I've said on shows throughout this week that Cam Coleman is going to be a big deal in this game because with Hugh Freeze out, Derek Nix calling plays, he has made it very clear that he recognizes that Cam Coleman's one of the best players in college football. And he has been just that. He's been unstoppable. I'm expecting I think it's a mismatch in Auburn's favor just because it's Cam Coleman. I mean, I think he's incredible. What do you anticipate Alabama doing to slow down Cam Coleman?
Well, one of the most interesting matchups is going to be Cam Coleman versus Alabama's freshman cornerback, Dijon Lee. And I don't blame any Auburn fan for thinking, oh, this is a matchup we can't wait to see. No, freshman's going to handle him. I would agree on the surface, but Dijon's a unique guy. I bet he's the first cornerback Cam Coleman's seen all year that's legitimately 6'4" and has this crazy pterodactyl type wingspan for a corner. Dijon Lee, per Pro Football Focus, is graded out as one of the best coverage cornerbacks in all of college football this season.
He's a good player.
He got burned on basically the first snap in the Florida State. First snap he played as a college football player gets burned deep by Florida State. Frankly, a big part of that loss, it was kind of a momentum shifting play for the Seminoles in that game. And as we know, over in Tuscaloosa, that didn't go well for Alabama. But since that moment, Dijon Lee has been locked down. He beat out a returning senior starter in Damani Jackson. I think the Dijon Lee Cam Coleman matchup is fascinating because I hold Cam Coleman in the highest amount of respect. I agree with you. He's easily one of the best receivers in all of college football. That's going to be a great matchup. The other corner, Alabama doesn't do a lot of, I guess you'd call it shadowing, where one corner is just assigned to a guy.
Yeah.
They don't really do that. They play boundary and field, with the corner. So Dijon Lee will be on Cam Coleman. Zabian Brown, name some people might be familiar with. He'll be on Cam Coleman part of the time as well. Cam's not Auburn's only good wide receiver. Obviously, Eric Singleton is a fantastic player. Malcolm Simmons is a really good player. Well, I looked at Auburn's numbers, Zach. Boy, I mean, Cam and Eric Singleton get massive target share. Their target share is more than twice of what the rest of the room combined. Now, Malcolm catches some balls, but their target share is huge. It's really the Cam and Eric show with Malcolm Simmons out there and virtually no one else, not even backs and tight ends catching balls. It's those three wideouts.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn has had no production from tight end. Like Preston Howard, they've tried to get him. He can't catch the football consistently. He gets open, but he can't hold on to the ball, which is unfortunate. Horatio Fields was a guy who was getting a lot of touches and targets early, but he got hurt. And I don't expect him to play. They're going to try to do the medical redshirt route, see if we can get him another year, because he was a really solid number 3 option before he went down. But yeah, I mean, and Derek Nix has leaned into, hey, Cam and Eric are unbelievable. And like, they're not that beat up because, they couldn't get him the ball a ton, while Hugh Freeze was here, which sounds ridiculous to say. Give me an Alabama guy who needs to step up to get Alabama back to the college football playoff.
I was thinking about this. I was going to go Jeremy Bernard, who sat out last week, just resting bumps and bruises. He should be fine against Auburn. I was going to go Ryan Williams. I'm almost tired every week of predicting that this is the Ryan breakout game. The fact of the matter is he's just been banged up. This has not been the year everyone
He had a rough Iron Bowl last year, too.
He did. Really, the end of the season last year wasn't so good. Now, this year, he comes into the year, gets a little hamstring in fall camp, then a concussion. It's been one bruise after another for Ryan. He just hasn't had the monster year that everyone thought, but he's still a good football player.
Right.
There's no question he can make plays on Saturday that are the difference. But I might go with Germ, or I'm just going to go with what might be a boring answer for a lot of people, but that's Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson has to return to playing at the level he was playing more midseason. Last couple of games just hasn't been quite as sharp. Now, that's been exaggerated. I mean, for instance, people say, well, he threw 2 picks against Eastern Illinois. Well, one of the picks was a Hail Mary at the end of a half. I mean, that's not really an interception. It's a literal jump ball.
Jimmy, you can't add context to stats. Are you kidding
me? Exactly. So Ty hasn't been quite as bad, but there's been too many turnovers, and hasn't been quite as sharp. Some of that's who you play. You play Oklahoma, you play LSU. I mean, these are really elite defenses. Auburn's good on defense, no doubt about that. Ty's got to play better for Alabama to win. This is a road SEC game. I know there's all this voodoo talk that comes from Alabama fans, but I just look at it like this. It's really difficult to win on the road in this league. And this is just another difficult stop to win on the road. You play good teams and tough environments. And Ty's going to have to play like he did at Georgia, at South Carolina. Won't be new to him, but he does have to play better.
Yeah. Who wins the Iron Bowl? Jimmy and I take a stab at it next, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Bama. Final few minutes here, Jimmy. This may surprise folks, but I'm taking Auburn. I'm taking the Auburn Tigers to win at home, to reach bowl eligibility, to crush their rivals' hopes and dreams, Jimmy. I think Auburn finds a way to get it done. I mean, I know you mentioned Jordan-Hare Stadium just a few seconds ago, and I think that's a huge part of this. I mean, Auburn has kept it close. Arguably should have won. The last 2 times this game was played at Jordan-Hare. Whether it's Tank Bigsby, if he stays in bounds, or whether it's the 4th and 31. I mean, we all know how those games ended, and some of this, it feels like Auburn's due. Some of this is I think there are mismatches that actually benefit Auburn, because this is the first Iron Bowl since 2017 where I feel like the roster talent is actually kind of close. I mean, 2019, I know Auburn won, but it took 2 pick sixes and some craziness for all that to happen. I mean, what a crazy game that was. But this is the first time where I think there are certain things where Auburn can line up and just play against Alabama like they were able to do in 2017. And I think at home and with the belief that this team seems to have, I'm taking Auburn, Jimmy.
I certainly don't think that's crazy. Auburn, I do think it's going to be tight in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
And when it's tight in the fourth quarter, you got to sort of like the home team's position. To the surprise of no one, I'm going to pick Alabama to win the game.
Sure.
Now, this is, reasoning that goes beyond or maybe doesn't even rise to the level of the analysis of 2025 Alabama versus 2025 Auburn. It's just that in the history of this game, the better team has usually won. The team with the better record almost always wins this game.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. Whenever I hear a national guy break down the Iron Bowl and they say, boy, when these two meet, you can throw out the record books, I immediately know that guy has no idea what he's
that's
talking
not
about.
true.
Right. You've got to keep the record book and keep it wide open because it normally tells you who wins this game. The better team, as defined by the one-loss record, almost always wins this game.
Yeah.
And therefore, I say Alabama's going to win. I do think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be in the 20s. I think the fewer points probably benefits Auburn. I think if it gets to track meet time, that means Alabama sort of solved some of its offensive woes from the last couple of weeks. But I like Alabama in a close game. I'm going to say 27-21, but somewhere in that area where it's just one play. Hey, it could be another one of those games, Zach, that we refer to it with one name, whether it or a phrase, whether it's kick six or grave digger. It could easily be one of those type games.
It absolutely could. It absolutely could. Which would be great for the rivalry. No question about it. Just from the Auburn perspective, like you look at Alabama's 2 losses, FSU, Oklahoma. You ask the question, can Auburn do that? And I think they have the personnel to do it, Jimmy. Do they have the mindset? Because one of the things you said, which is important, if it's close in the fourth quarter, Auburn has found ways to lose games in the fourth quarter, and Alabama has found ways to win games in the fourth quarter. Culturally, how much does that matter? And the answer to that is it matters a bunch. And I think that's the big concerning part of it. But as far as what FSU and Oklahoma was able to do against Alabama, as far as winning the trenches, as far as being able to run the football, I'm curious to see what Auburn's devotion to the running game will look like early on Saturday because of that.
Yeah, Alabama's been pretty good against the run. I think what Auburn brings to the table, though, is you're not just dealing with Jeremiah Cobb, who's a high-quality SEC back, but the quarterback's going to have legs. And it doesn't matter which one. I've heard, well, you got to prepare for Ashton Daniels. You got to prepare for Deuce Knight. Even maybe have to prepare for Jackson Arnold. They're all dual threat guys.
They're all the same.
Every one of them. It's not like you're bringing a guy off the bench who's got a completely different style. Now, I do think Deuce is probably more explosive than the other guys, but you're still defending them the same way. I
don't think you're doing anything different.
Not really. You're going to use a spy, almost certainly. I think there'll be a spy. I mean, Ashton Daniels rushed for over 1,000 yards in his career at Stanford. Obviously ran for a lot of yards up in Nashville. I think there will be a spy on the quarterback, and that's one of the things that Alabama's going to work on. In terms of what Auburn can do to mimic the success Florida State and Oklahoma had, Alabama helped those teams a lot. I mean, the Oklahoma game, if you look at Alabama had over 400 yards of offense. Oklahoma had 210. But Alabama turned over the ball 3 times and had special teams disasters. Oklahoma scoring 20 of their 23 points directly off the turnovers. Oklahoma, their longest drive of the game, 41 yards. Alabama had 4 drives over 60, but lost the game because they turned over the football, and Oklahoma did not. You know, these close games of the fourth quarter, there's a big difference between NFL and college football. One of the big differences is turnover margin almost always determines the winner in an NFL game. Why? Because the teams are evenly matched and it's close in the fourth quarter. And whoever turns over the ball more than the other guy. I think in a game like this, where it's going to be close in the fourth quarter, the turnovers will decide the game. And Alabama has turned it over in their 2 losses. They've been pretty good with the football in the games they've won. I think forcing these young Ashton Daniels hasn't faced many defenses like Alabama in his time at Stanford. He didn't face an Alabama type defense in Nashville either. Deuce Knight certainly hasn't with his limited experience. I think forcing those guys into turnovers and not turning it over yourself, that would be a massive difference in a close game.
Yeah, and if we see Deuce on Saturday, I think it'll be very little. Very, very little. I think it's going to be Ashton Daniels pretty much 100% of the snaps, but we'll see.
Interesting. So you see Ashton Daniels starting. I've said as a guess, I don't know Auburn like you do, I've said as a guess, if Ashton is ineffective, that they might be eager to go to Deuce based on, well, we saw what he did last week. I mean, how much, in other words, how much rope do you see Ashton Daniels having here? I mean, is it
I think
just
a
his
lot,
game?
Jimmy. I think a lot. I don't think they want to put Deuce in on Saturday.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just the gut reaction. We'll see. DJ Durkin was asked, like, will we see Deuce? And he just answered the question with, like, how good he looked against Mercer. It's like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, like, with it being Jordan Hare, if number 9 runs out there, that place is going to lose it. That place is going to go crazy.
I was figuring he could run for mayor this week and do well.
Yeah. No, I think so. He probably went by a few points there for sure. Jimmy, for all the Auburn folks watching, how can they consume everything you've got going on?
Locked on Bama. Luke and I have we have a number of shows. We're actually going to do a show Friday just about, we're going to depart Alabama Auburn, which is nuts, but we're going to do a whole, hey, signing day is coming up really, really soon. We hadn't talked enough about that particularly. So Friday, we're going to do 2 shows, an Alabama Auburn show, and then just a recruiting signing day show.
Yeah.
That's coming up on Friday, but we have Locked on Bama content 7 days a week.
Yep. However, you check out Locked on Auburn, you can find Locked on Bama. However you find Locked on Bama, you can find Locked on Auburn. For Jimmy Stein of Locked on Bama, I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked on Auburn. This has been a crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Bama.